have 200,000 visitors plus a year, many of which are kids that come to this building. So to improve that experience, again, not necessarily come with artifacts, but there's lots of history of what is Oregon. How do we tell the Oregon story? At the 150th birthday of Oregon, we had some 10,000 people through this building. Folks in the staff put together a committee and sort of envisioned something that happening. Little did we know what we were getting into, and we pretty much put it in with very little budget, if you will, but it was a lot of good work by a lot of people. And I mean, it was amazing that day. I mean, to the point of the fire department being a little concerned, we had to hold people from coming into the building because we had too many people in the building from a fire standpoint. We had people coming up saying, I'd never been to the Capitol before, I didn't know we were allowed to come in. People just had been through the building the first time, and then of course people hadn't been here since they were in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade. So that was great. We've had 2 fires that have burned previous capitals down. Fortunately, the fire started outside on the terrace. Most of the damage, fire damage, was to the ceremonial office. It started just outside the governor's ceremonial office, which is in the middle of the building, and had basically melted the doors, shattered, and the wind, which was significant that night, blew in, and of course the room was not engulfed in flames, but things were burning, like there's wood paneling, there's some furniture, those kinds of things. But the real damage, the most significant aspect of the damage was the water and the smoke in terms of dealing with as a residual of the fire, but also dealing with the fire hoses and whatever. So the ceremonial office was definitely the worst. The ceilings were peeled and charred. That whole room is paneled in walnut, and those were on fire, at least the furthest ones to the south where the fire was. We had to move fast. Again, the fire was awful and significant, but the water was our biggest problem because we had to get that cleaned, walls opened up so that we didn't have mold, because you can't, once that happens, you can make it look good, but the mold is on the back side. So that was the most immediate issue, is to sort of recover from the fire to the point of getting things cleaned up, aired out, dried, whatever, not even worrying at this point about what are we going to do to restore everything. The ceremonial office of the governor's suite, because yes, the ceremonial office is the one that got hit, but the reception area just outside of that, and then of course water and smoke damages affected the offices on either side of that, the Board of Control, the Governor's Conference Room as well. Those are all historic rooms, which was a sort of heightened sense of sensitivity, if you will. But where committee services is up on the 4th floor, room through 50, which at the time was being used by members, staff, and whatever as offices. And then, of course, the hearing rooms were all flooded as well. I mean, water does go down. I mean, there was even wet in the garage, but so water finds its way. Of course, the fire was outside, so the exterior of the building, the marble was cracked, blackened, whatever, and obviously the doors and some of the windows as a result of either being blown out with water or melted from the fire. So it was exterior impacts as well. In terms of artifacts, really it was the building itself, the ceremonial office. The wood paneling was charred. There was some furniture, most of which was able to be taken out. There were some chairs that were burned. Some water damage, those could be restored. So we didn't really lose too much in terms of artifacts. The fact that we lost some of the marble baseboards, the marble outside, those kind of things that we had to replace, and we had to do it in, again, this is on the National Register, and so we can't just do anything. nor was there a desire to. So we went, for example, to marble. We went back, the actual quarry, in Vermont, Danby Marble, that quarry was closed. But we found a quarry that was near there, had the same rock, and we did a number of tests, sending back samples back and forth. Is this good enough? And those kinds of things. The map over the mantle in the governor's ceremonial office that was charred, discolored by flames, because it was on one of the, well, it was on the east wall, which the fire was mostly affected the paneling on the south wall, but was coming around the sides, and so it got charred. So that was an original 1937, 38, and so we had that had to be taken off. It was very much affixed to the wall, but we had that taken off. We found a art restorer in Portland. We have that on her work. Nina Olson did an excellent job. But it was interesting in terms of doing that work. Like everything else in a historic or fine arts kind of thing, you don't necessarily just repaint it. You don't wash it off and find the numbers, because it wasn't a paint by number kind of thing. But so she cleaned off. One was cleaning it off was significant after that many years. I don't know, cigar smoke or whatever. That was amazing, just to wash it off and it brightened up. But she did restore it so that some of the, over time and because of damage, repainted, but done in watercolors. So that's clear that that's not the original. If you want to go back to the original, you can wash that off. But the other thing is that she didn't repaint over all the burning. So when you look at that painting today, one looks so much better than it did in terms of what's on there, but you can see that the paper is charred from the fire. It should represent, I mean, it's part of the history now. The historic areas, we went to photos. We have lots of photos. Downside is they're all black and white, so we don't know really necessarily what color it was. We have architectural drawings. We found all those drawings in the University of Oregon. They're not in archives. They're down at the University of Oregon, the original architectural drawings, those that we have. So we worked off of those, worked off of photographs. Prior to the fire, I don't remember when, but it had been at a point of discussion for a number of years, Capitol Foundation, whatever, of a desire to replace the carpeting that was in the governor's office, which was a gold wall-to-wall carpeting. That carpeting all had to go. It was wet, and Governor Kulongoski said, I'd like a different carpet. People come to my to the conference room. I entertain dignitaries, U.S. dignitaries or international folk, and then we would have a picture taken. It's a beautiful space. You know, it is the Oregon Capitol, but there's nothing that really says it's Oregon. He wanted a seal. Well, that wasn't the original carpet. So, but he was willing to pay and raise funds for a custom carpet. So we came to an agreement. We put the seal in, found somebody to do the design, actually the same company that did the carpeting in the House and the Senate, and came up with a beautiful design. And I mean, that was just remarkable. But it was all private funds. The foundation put some money into it, but for the most part, Governor Kulongoski raised the funds to put this carpet in there. There are 4 agencies that serve the legislature, nonpartisan: fiscal, revenue, legislative council, and then legislative administration. Legislative administration has a varied portfolio in the sense that there are about 100 employees, great employees, and it includes committee services, which staff all the legislative committees during legislative session, and in the interim as well. Again, all work is done in committees, so they're the staff to the members. And then information technology and human resources or personnel, and then finance for legislative administration's budget as well as the Assembly's budget. And then last but not least is facility services, because the legislature owns the Capitol. There's always something to do in this building. I mean, it's never done.